Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Saturday, everybody. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. It's here, guys, the day we've all been waiting for, the first full college football playoff slate ever in the history of college football. We had a little appetizer yesterday with the Indiana-Notre Dame game, and now we have 3 playoff games on tonight, or today I should say. But it's really, really exciting. We've been waiting all year long to see how it's going to look, how it's going to play out. I'm super excited. Last night, obviously being a Notre Dame fan, was really awesome for me, but I'm looking forward to some really good quality games in today's slate. And of course, as always, guys, I have some picks to go ahead and share with you. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. All right, guys, with a new day comes some new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. Again, we got this college football playoff starting today. Again, we technically started yesterday with one game, but we have our first full slate today. We have 5 picks to go and share with you guys in today's slate. But first, before we dive into today's picks, a quick little recap of how I did last night. We're going to jump on over to GuyBostonSports.com. There are our college football picks from yesterday's video. And overall, we'll go ahead and zoom in here. There are our 3 plays from yesterday's video. Now, we only went 1 and 2 yesterday. Not a very good night. We did have Notre Dame minus 6.5. That was never really a doubt. Tulane plus 10.5. They got blown out by Florida. In hindsight, I thought Tulane could go ahead and shake off the last couple weeks. Unfortunately, they didn't. Florida, they just were the better team in better form at the time. And the Notre Dame team total over 20.5, we did miss. They ended up scoring 27 points. We literally missed it by 2 points. But it is what it is. Overall, 1 and 2 night. We're now 78, 81, and 3 on the season going into today's video. I think we can do much better in today's video. Let's go ahead and prove you guys that I can do it. 5 picks coming your way right now. All right, guys, now jumping into the outlier screen, our first pick in today's slate. We're targeting the first playoff game. We have SMU at Penn State, 12 p.m. kickoff. We're going Penn State here, -7 on the spread. Now, the actual line is Penn State -8.5, and I don't think it's a bad bet, but just to play a little safer, I'm taking a -7. The odds are worth it. It's -134 on DraftKings, so it's not like it's like this super juiced play. Ultimately, I think knocking off that 1.5 points could ultimately save you in the end. Now, I do think Penn State should roll here and beat SMU handedly, but just in case, it's always safe to knock a point or even a half a point off every single bet. I like that. That's how I always think. You don't want to get beat on the hook. I think especially here in round 1, guys, you're going to see this pretty often. We saw this last night where you have one team. Now, to be fair, Notre Dame was not the most battle-tested team in college football, but Notre Dame was clearly on a higher level of talent, of skill, of experience, a higher caliber than Indiana, and it showed last night. Now, the score is a little bit closer than the game actually was. 27-17 was the final score. Notre Dame dominated that game from start to finish. It was like, what, 27-3 at one point? You know, they dominated from start to finish. Indiana, until the fourth quarter, only had 3 points. It wasn't until the game was out of reach that Indiana came back. My point being, guys, that one of the flaws of the college football playoff, and the reason why I don't really want them to expand it to 14 teams, is that in college football in particular, this isn't college basketball. You know, college basketball, all it takes is one bad shooting day, and you know the higher seed can get beaten. Football is not exactly structured that way. Yes, you can have an off day and you can lose, but there is a lot of different levels of talent, especially in college football. And the flaw with this 12-team bracket is that there are some teams in there that just honestly can't hang with the big boys. That happened last night. Indiana, as great of a season as they had a weak schedule, and that's another problem facing college football right now is these super conferences. These teams have cupcake schedules. They're not battle tested, and then they come to the playoff and you get beat like the Indiana did last night. Indiana had no fight in that game. I feel like we have another similar situation here with this Penn State SMU matchup where SMU, listen, great season by their standard, absolutely, but is this team deserving of competing for a national championship? I don't know. The last time we saw them out, they lost at Clemson in the ACC championship game. Clemson, a team that I'm not super fond of, a little foreshadowing for our next pick. But yeah, I mean, SMU, they had a great year. It's hard to crap on them, but I just don't think they're on the same level as Penn State. Penn State had a great year. Now, you could say they beat up on bad teams also, but they played 2 hard games, Ohio State and Oregon. Yeah, they lost both of them, but they were within 7 points of Ohio State and within 8 points of Oregon. They played pretty well in the Big Ten championship game, enough to convince me that Penn State should be able to handle SMU pretty easily. Like I said, absolutely, Penn State has not had a brutal schedule in any way, shape, or form, but SMU, when you look at their big key victories this year, versus what Penn State's faced off. I mean, look at SMU's schedule. What's their toughest game? Clemson. They lost to Clemson. Yeah, they're a playoff team, but Clemson was a 3-loss team this year. They lost to BYU earlier in the season. That game didn't age well because BYU, although they were looking really solid for a while, BYU had a really poor finish of the year, so that BYU loss didn't age as well as they probably would hope. And then if you look at what their best win is, they barely beat Duke. They beat Louisville. I guess that's a decent one. I mean, they just don't really have those super impressive wins on their resume. And if you go on the right side of the screen, I'm not pulling this out of my ass, guys. I mean, SMU, now, they actually had a tougher strength of schedule than Penn State, which I'll admit is pretty surprising. But, however, Penn State has at least faced Ohio State. They faced Oregon. Like, they played 2 of the top 10 teams in the country. So, yeah, the overall schedule wasn't great, but the top teams they played were some of the best college football has to offer. When you look at SMU, yeah, you could say Clemson, they're a playoff team, but Clemson's the 12th seed. I don't think they should have been a playoff team. I know they won the ACC championship, so of course that got them in here. But again, I just don't think the highs for SMU have not been all that high. They've had a great year, but I just think Penn State's on another level of playing here. Penn State top 10 scoring defense. SMU has not. I can guarantee you, playing the ACC, they have not played a defense like Penn State's. Not even remotely close to the kind of defense that Penn State has to bring to the table. And then also offensively, Penn State top 25 scoring offense in the nation, top 20 rushing attack. They're 41st against the pass. SMU, not a very good, actually a pretty bad pass defense, tied for 92nd, giving up 232 passing yards per game. I just really don't see how SMU can hang around with this team. Penn State, coming from the Big Ten Conference, you have the more experienced team. I think obviously the more talented team. I think Penn State at home as well. Whiteout game, I'm sure they're going to go whiteout for this one. I think Penn State rocks SMU here. So 8.5 is not a bad bet. A little safer to go -7, but either way, I think you're winning. I think Penn State wins by 10 or more in this game. And piggybacking off that, guys, my second pick in today's slate, we're going Penn State team total over 29.5 points. Again, this one's a little juiced, -146 on FanDuel. I think Penn State's going to score a healthy amount of points in this game. Now, SMU defensively this year, they're pretty solid, actually, 28th in scoring. We know they're not very good against pass, but they actually do have a top 5 run defense, and that's where Penn State's offense has their strength, is their running game. So that stuff looks okay. And look at the other measures. It's a pretty good pass rush. Tied for 6th in yards per play. Pretty efficient in the red zone. Not a bad defense necessarily, although their pass defense is not particularly great. Again, though, that being said, who has SMU played? The ACC offenses versus Penn State, where they played, now granted it's the Big Ten, but they have played their Ohio States. They held Ohio State to 20 points. Oregon scored 45 on them, which that's not great for them, but we know Penn State has an overall pretty solid defensive team. And look on the offensive side of things for Penn State. I mean, they scored 37 against Oregon. That's a pretty impressive one. Like, yeah, they gave up 45 points to Oregon, but they scored 37 in that game. I just think when you look at and the data shows, I mean, so far this year, a 62% hit rate on the over for Penn State. 8 out of 13 games have cashed it, averaging 33.62 points per game this season. And that's going up against the Big Ten defenses. If the one thing the Big Ten is good at, it's playing defense. I don't know how SMU's defense, and that's the problem with the current schedule structure, is that you just don't know how these teams are going to hold up here. Look at the last 5 games for Penn State. They've cashed it in 4 of their last 5 games, 80% hit rate, averaging 38.2 points per game. Obviously, that 37-point performance against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, despite losing, was a pretty impressive result. I just don't think SMU's defense is going to hold up. I think you have a clear area of weakness right there, with obviously SMU being 92nd in passing yards allowed. Penn State, now they're not necessarily an elite passing offense, but they are top 50 in the nation. I think you have a clear advantage to take advantage. I guess where that's a double negative right there. There's an area where Penn State can attack them. I think it's through the air. I think Drew Lock could have a pretty big game here. I don't really do player props here, but if you do want to do player props, Drew Lock passing yards, not a bad option in this game. All right, guys, my third pick in today's slate. Again, I think it's another easy one. We got Clemson at Texas, 4 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Longhorns -13.5. This is -104 on FanDuel too, so pretty good value. I'm not going to spend as long of a rant on this one as I did the Penn State pick. I just think Texas is in a whole other class compared to Clemson, and the spread shows that. Clemson, they barely snuck in because they beat SMU in the ACC championship game. This was a 3-loss Clemson team. They lose to South Carolina. They lose to Louisville. They got beat pretty bad by Louisville as well. I just don't think Clemson's played a team anywhere near. I mean, they played Georgia. I guess you could, but that was back all the way in week 1. Since then, Clemson has not played anybody really, relatively close. The next best team they played is you toss the SMU and South Carolina. They have played some good teams. Don't get me wrong. They played Georgia. They played Louisville, South Carolina, SMU. I mean, they had some tough games on their schedule for sure. But Texas has certainly played tougher opponents playing in the SEC conference. They played Georgia twice. Now, they did lose both times, but they definitely put up a better fight than Clemson did. They beat A&M. They've got some good good games on the resume here. They played some tough teams throughout the season. So I just trust Texas a lot more in this game. They're just way more at home too. Come on. I just don't. I don't think Clemson, honestly, if I'm being honest, deserved to be in the playoff. My perfect college football playoff experience would be like an 8-team playoff. Narrow it a little bit. I just think once you get outside, once you start putting 3-loss teams, I know they won the conference championship. That's why they got in. But once teams like that get into the playoff, I don't know. I'm not for it necessarily. Again, I'm not trying to shit on the playoff. I do like the fact that your teams are in it a lot longer. You actually have a chance. You know, the fact that you could be a 3-loss team and still have a chance to compete for something other than just not to say meaningless, but a lot of people view it as a meaningless bowl game. You know, I do like that aspect of it, but I do think you have teams like Clemson who get in, and now they play Texas, and it's like this is just they're playing two different games really, and I think Texas should blow them out. I think this game will be a domination for Texas. Love the Longhorns here, minus 13.5. In our final game, we're looking at, guys, here I have 2 picks from this one. We have Ohio State, Tennessee, 8 p.m. kickoff. This one's going to be the best game, I think, of the day. It's where the one matchup where I think these teams are I do think Ohio State is the better team, but I do think they're on more equal footing, where I think this could actually be a competitive, tight game. I do like Ohio State here, though, on the spread, minus 7. Coming off that Michigan loss, that's the last time we saw them. You know Ohio State is pissed off royally. You know, they missed out on the Big Ten championship game, a chance for a rematch with Oregon. You know, they got embarrassed. Obviously, the state of Ohio put in laws now. You can't plant the flag in the middle of the field. It's been a rough couple of weeks for Ohio State since then, and they've had a lot of time to kind of sit with that loss, kind of fester in it. I think Ohio State's coming into this game motivated as all hell. I love the Buckeyes in this spot, minus 7. I think Ohio State should roll in this game. I think Tennessee is a good team. Like, I don't think this is going to be, you know, a blowout like the other games I think they will be. I do think it'll be a relatively close game, but close in this term is like, I think Ohio State wins the game by like 7, 8, 9, 10 range. You know, I don't think they're like Texas. I think they're going to win by like 20 plus. You know, I think Penn State's going to win by like 2 touchdowns at least. I think Ohio State here, this will be a relatively closer game compared to the other two, but I do think Ohio State should cover the number of minus 7. Minus 115 odds too on DraftKings. Like I said, you have that extra motivation. This Ohio State team is very much battle tested as well. Obviously, they went toe-to-toe with Oregon. You know, yeah, they lose to Michigan. But overall, this is a really good Ohio State team. Number 1 scoring defense in college football. 2nd against the pass. 7th against the run. You know, really good across the board. Anyway, you shake it on offense. Although it's not as good, they're still pretty solid. 30th in passing yards, 59th in rushing yards. Tennessee is certainly battle-tested as well. There's no doubt about that. You know, they played some good games in their own right. But ultimately, I think the experience of this Ohio State team, the way this defense has been playing lately, I think the Buckeyes are the better spot, especially at home. The home field advantage is massive in these games. You know, this was in Rocky Top. I might change my opinion on the spread, but I think being at home for Ohio State, again, the first time playing since that Michigan loss, this team's going to be fired up. And like I said, I can talk about all the data, the matchup stats, and blah, blah, blah. You know Ohio State's a great team. You know Tennessee's a great team. What it comes down to, I think, is, you know, home field advantage. Ohio State having, you know, the chance to kind of sit with that Michigan loss a little bit more. I think Ryan Day, although he gets this criticism, I don't think he's a horrible coach. I think Ohio State is the spot to bet in this game, minus 7. And then my 5th and final pick, guys, I'm sticking with the under in this game, 46.5. These are 2 really good defenses. Tennessee, tied for 3rd in scoring defense. Ohio State, the 1st scoring defense. You know, both categories, these teams are, you know, offensively, they're both okay passing teams. Ohio State, 38th. Tennessee, 62nd. They're both really good passing defenses overall. Both are pretty good against the run. Overall, 2 really good defensive teams. I think it's going to be a lower scoring affair. You know, I think Ohio State, like 30 to 20. Actually, no, I think something like 23, like 16 seems right to me. 23-13, maybe Ohio State gets a little bit big of a lead. You know, 26. You know, something like that. Something in that ballpark where I think Ohio State is going to score less than 30 points for sure. I don't think Tennessee will hit 20 points in this game. I think this game screams to me something in the ballpark of like 20-13, 23-13, something like that. You know, 20-10. I think it's going to be a relatively low-scoring game where Ohio State's going to hit 20 points, but they're not going to go too far over that. I don't know if Tennessee hits 20 points in this game, I'll be totally honest. All right, guys, so that's it for me today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. I'll be back sometime next week with some bowl game picks. I'll be doing kind of like this with the day-by-day picks because I think it's just the easier way to do it. Obviously, we're going to have to wait till New Year's for more college football playoff games, but until then, guys, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy your Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas. Enjoy the holiday. I'll see you back at some point next week with some more college football picks, but until then, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy your holiday, guys.